Well, with the NBA Finals wrapping up, it appears that the media is thirsty for more blood. As not even, I don't think it's even been 24 hours, but people are already predicting that the Lakers are going to repeat. And I mean, that's cool. That's cool. I'm fine with that prediction. I actually genuinely believe that there's a very good chance that the Lakers are going to repeat, with Anthony Davis most likely coming back and the roster remaining relatively intact into the next season. But I mean, with opinions being opinions, we have to discuss the topic of, is there a chance that any other team could potentially, topple the Lakers in the next season? Because I mean, you can't ever write anyone off. If there's one thing I've learned through watching the NBA, is that you can never really truly write any team off. But with that being said, I think we're just going to go through the list here and write every single team off. So, as I'm looking down through the Western Conference rankings here, standings rather, a few people who jump out at me, right? First, I think we should just take this top to bottom, because that seems to make the most sense. Golden State Warriors decided they're just going to tank this entire season in hopes of getting a good draft pick, and my god, that strategy worked out spectacularly. Not only did they manage to land Andrew Wiggins in a trade, which basically is going to be like a day one fit for them if they actually do start running their actual lineup, because they just came off of a few seasons and championships with Kevin Durant. But I mean, they're going to have a really, I think, what would they get, the second, or no, I don't remember what pick it was, but they got like top 3 in the NBA draft. So this is the main team to beat for LeBron James and the Lakers, because I mean, if anyone, it's got to be the Warriors. This team has been winning for like the better part of a decade now, and I mean, I don't see why they'd stop now. The roster, to be fair, they did lose Andre Iguodala, Kevin Durant, Sean Livingston, some decent role players, but I still feel like they have a genuine chance because their main core is still intact, and then they've got some young talent in Eric Pascal, whoever they decide to draft in the 2020 NBA draft. So their chances are pretty good, I'd say. Alright, skipping everyone else and going to the more relevant teams, the Denver Nuggets are an interesting group. I feel like they might actually be like the ones to beat for LeBron James. Everyone will say Warriors-Lakers is going to be the next Western Conference Finals matchup, but I beg to differ. I actually believe that if the Denver Nuggets go out and in free agency and get someone who can probably either provide a decent amount of offense or play some okay defense, or, well, rather both would be preferable, or maybe even some daunting defense. Like, who do we got for free agents here? Now, in all fairness, I actually do believe that the Denver Nuggets have enough depth to where they can actually just get a bunch of scoring from their bench unit. And even a guy like Otto Porter Jr., dear God, excuse me, Michael Porter Jr., not that fraud. But a guy like Michael Porter Jr., he's taken leaps in development now to the point where I feel like he can be a genuine NBA starter, probably average around 20 plus points, and he can be a real scorer for that group over in Denver. But if they were to go through with the free agency business, I know that they're off of Paul Millsap's egregious contract that they signed with they signed a couple years ago, and it looked good at first, but oh god, did it turn ugly real quick. But a guy like Brandon Ingram, he's good right now. He can get you damn near, I'd say, 30 points right now. Actually, that's maybe a stretch. You know what? Actually, no, I take that back. No, it's not. He went from average. His averages are slowly climbing. On the Pelicans this season, he had 24 points on really good efficiencies from the field. So, Brandon Ingram, he's a restricted free agent, so it might be, unless he wants to stay with the Pelicans, which he might, who knows. But I'd say he could be a really good fit for this team. So yeah, anyways, moving on. In conclusion, though, I'd have to say, if I wanted to put my money somewhere, I'd really put it in Denver. I feel like, although they did get nearly swept, in a gentleman's sweep, of course, by the Lakers just this playoffs, I actually do feel like next season, might actually be their time. Like they might actually be able to put together a pretty decent roster that could compete with LeBron and the Lakers. And then the next group, we all know them very well, the LA Clippers. I'm gonna say no. I don't know. It's weird. The LA Clippers are. I'm sorry. I can't stop. Oh my god. Okay. All right. Get it together. The LA Clippers. What to say? I mean, the Clippers curse is real. If anything, that season, that playoffs confirms it. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. I don't know. I don't think they're going to be able to get it done. It's not just them now. Doc Rivers, he's gone. And say what you want about Doc Rivers in the playoffs and how he chokes a bunch, he still led this team of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, who were just formed this season, to a second seed in the West. That's on its own pretty impressive. So to lose a coach like that, it's going to be pretty hard to find a replacement, one that'll be able to just adapt really quickly to the situation. So the Clippers have their championship window not close on their face right away. But you know what? All in all, I just don't really think the Clippers can pull it off. I feel like they went with a roster that's just too offensive heavy, and they just got a bunch of big names together and said, all right, here's our roster. We're going to take down the Lakers. And, well, they kind of forgot about any group cohesion, chemistry, and defense that will actually impact ball games. So, and if anything, the 3-1 lead blown to the Nuggets proves that they're just not really built for the playoffs. Oh yeah, load management too. That load management stuff, it's got to stop. It really tore into them in the playoffs. I mean, no one could play more than 40 minutes on that team. It was just an absolute disaster. So Clippers really got to think about what they're going to do from here on out. People are saying trade Paul George. I honestly still think Paul George can be half decent. But I'd say maybe trade guys like Montrezl Harrell. Well, actually, he's a free agent, I believe. But the Clippers have a decent amount of bench pieces they can trade for maybe like a good starter. Although then again, Clippers in trading, I don't think they're going to want to do any of that for a while, since they just traded away like all their draft picks. So, oh yeah. Everyone else, I mean, to be fair, I can't write anyone off completely. I mean, in all fairness, anyone could really have a chance at taking the Western Conference. It's all up based on what happens next season. I mean, hell, the Lakers could go down with, like, a freak injury to their two best stars for all we know, and their season is completely destroyed then. But, you know, I feel like the Lakers, best case scenario, they're probably going to win another chip. I don't want to make I don't want to die on this hill where I say the Lakers are going to be the definite NBA champions, but at the same time, it's a good hill to die on, because there's a good chance it's going to happen. There are some concerns with how old the roster is getting, and how basically you've got guys like, well, LeBron's pretty old now, he's going to 36. Defensively, this team might not be that great. But overall, they've got a pretty decent unit to where offensively, and then you got AD on defense to hold you down. So it really, I'd say for the Lakers, their real concern right now should be either deciding to go with this lineup again, or maybe making some trades so where they have an actual third guy that they can go to. Because right now, I just don't feel like they have a third go-to. Contavious Caldwell-Pope was decent in some playoff series this playoffs, but if you look at the overall final stats, he was more or less just another version of Danny Green, just a little bit better, and that's not really saying much. So I don't know. Again, I feel like the Lakers could do absolutely nothing this offseason. Just stick with the exact same team and they'd be fine. But at the same time, I feel like if a team's gonna go for it and try to beat the Lakers, then the Lakers might want to make a move. That's just my opinion. So yeah, anyways, I'm not writing anyone off by just not listing anyone else other than the Warriors, Nuggets, and Clippers, but those are pretty much not the featured matchups, God. Those are pretty much the teams to beat. not teams to beat, the teams that could potentially, you know what I'm talking about, beat the Lakers. The best teams in the West, other than the Lakers, who are going to win the championship, of course. And then scrolling over to the Eastern Conference, because obviously you got to think of the East too. There were a lot of injuries, surprisingly, in the Eastern Conference. I mean, there were many teams that we did not see at full health during either the regular season or the playoffs. Like, for example, Giannis, I mean, he was there for most of the playoffs. It was a pretty disappointing playoffs, even when he was in the game, but that's a notable injury, I'd say. Hang on, let me check. Okay, yeah, so the injury was a right ankle sprain, which he re-aggravated in Game 4 of that Miami Heat series, but so that's nothing. I don't think that's anything major, so I'm pretty sure, unless Giannis decides to walk from the Bucks, which I'd say he wouldn't. I don't know. First seed in the East, pretty much debatably best team in the regular season. All they need to do is figure out how they're going to pull it together in the playoffs. I don't see why you leave a situation like that. Then there's also the Toronto Raptors. Actually, you know, every time I doubt the Raptors, and every time everyone doubts the Raptors, like they say they're going to be a 6th seed. I even said they're going to be a 4th seed, and that was apparently generous to most, in comparison to most NBA standings, but they still managed the 2nd seed even without Kawhi. So I'm not going to write them off, because every time I do that, unless their entire roster leaves, then they're probably in a rebuild mode. But no, I'm not going to write off the Raptors completely. I'd say most of their players might come back. Some may leave for bigger contracts. They said there's rumors about Kyle Lowry getting traded to another team because he's got 1 year left and he's getting pretty old, but there's always a chance. If they can shed some salary and pick up a one more piece, they might be able to have another go at it. Looking at the Boston Celtics. Oh, hang on. Sorry. Shit, wrong subject. We're talking about injuries here. Okay. Victor Oladipo and the Pacers wasn't there for like the entire season. Comes back for the playoffs on a whim. Literally, he said he wasn't going to play, and then he's like, you know what? This basketball thing looks kind of cool. I think I'm going to go for it. So that happened. Ben Simmons in the playoffs, well, right before the playoffs, destroyed his leg. And now there's rumors of Doc Rivers trying to trade him. So that's just unfortunate. Kyrie Irving had his annual injury that he gets every other season. Kevin Durant sitting out with an ACL. John Wall for the Wizards was still out with an ACL. And, oh yeah, the Bulls were just all, well, no one cares about the Bulls, but their entire team got injured again. Big shocker. Blake Griffin with the Pistons. I thought for sure Blake Griffin with the Pistons was going to be at least a 7 seed. And then he got injured and we were like shocked, but we really should have seen it coming, honestly. And that pretty much rounds up everything notable. As for the Eastern Conference, who could finish and get to the finals? Heat again, of course. I can't see why they wouldn't. They not only have a decent enough roster to get there, but they have enough cap space to actually get another star to really be that final piece. So the Heat might be dangerous. Celtics could also do it as well. That team is just, it's just going to need to take a little bit more time to develop, and they're going to need an actual center out there instead of Daniel Tice, because, I mean, no knock on Tice. He's actually pretty decent as like I'd say a backup option, because the offense he gives is pretty nice. But defensively, you need a bigger guy. You need a bigger guy out there. And then, yeah, and then of course the Bucks. There's always a chance. Raptors. Anyways, this video is getting way too long. So yeah, I'm an NBA channel now. So if you want more NBA content, like the video. Subscribe for more. Totally, there's going to be NBA content every other month. I'd say, no, I'm joking. I might do this thing if it gets enough attention. Well, not attention. That's a bad way of saying it. I might do this thing more if it gets like a decent amount of likes and people are really feeling it. I mean, I'm feeling it myself, just coming on here talking about basketball related stuff. I'm feeling this, but anyways, like, subscribe, and take care.